Hello everyone, welcome to the third video of Basics of Python. In this video I will explain two important concepts, that is functions and classes. If you see this program which we have written till now, this is a procedural uh, program, right? So from start we are doing everything in one flow. Okay, we are printing hi and then printing this is a AI workshop, then creating some variables, some dictionary, and then printing something, taking input from the user, and then suggesting something, right? But in actual program, if you see, we divide this kind of program into separate reusable functions so that this main program becomes less lengthy, and also these functions can be reused at multiple places. And some part, like here if you see, we are taking the input of the symptom and then we are suggesting the like medicine what should be done. But actually if you see, our program is about agent, so we should not suggest, this program should not suggest the solution, the agent should suggest. So we need to give this responsibility to agent. So agent in this case will be a class, right? So what is a class? It's a separate entity which handles things for us, right? So we don't do everything in this procedural program. We outsource some tasks to agents, to classes. So what happens when we use classes? We can switch the classes. Suppose we have some agent, medical agent 1, which has some knowledge. Tomorrow we get a new agent. So we'll replace that agent, we'll replace that class. So with class we get that uh, responsibility uh, delegation uh, experience, right? So instead of we doing this, we are giving it to some other class. Okay, so we are moving some code to some function so we can reuse it. We are giving some responsibility to some other code, that we call that is class. Okay, so these two concepts are very important. You will understand it when I give you proper example. So let's first talk about function. So what we will do is we will divide this whole program into separate functions. So if you see here, we are doing greeting, like we are greeting the user, hi, this is AI agent workshop. Okay, this is one function, greet. Then this is what we are doing here is we are creating objects, dictionaries, we are initializing this program. So this part is initialization, and this we can for now remove. Okay, after this we are taking input and then we are suggesting output, right? So this is input function, okay, and this is output function. So in this whole uh, program we have four functions. If we divide these into functions, we can reduce the main code, and if in some other part of the code we need to message to greet the user, we can use the function. So let's start with replacing this with a function. So what we have to do is first we have to define functions. So in this program we need four functions first let's start with greet function. So before everything, before starting this program, we will create functions, we will define function. How to do that? Use def command. Okay, def keyword. Def is to define. Define what? Function. Which function? Greet. Okay, and every function has this bracket, then colon. and press enter, and what we want is we want these two lines. So just instead of these two lines directly written here, we can do this from the greet function. Okay, so this is a function which when called prints these two statements. Okay, without calling it will not do anything. So now if I run this program, these two messages will not be printed. Earlier it was there here, so it was printed, but now it's inside the function which we have not called yet. So if I now test this, see there is no welcome message, right? So we have to call this function. So how to call this is just use the same name and this parameter. That's it. So we are calling this function. Now this whole program starts from this line. This is just the definition. Now run it. Now we are getting the greeting. Okay. So what is the use now if we want these two lines to be printed somewhere else, right? Somewhere else if you want to greet, like in a for loop or somewhere, or here, we can just use this method and same thing will be printed, right, two times. So we don't have to repeat these lines everywhere. And here we have two lines, but it could be 100 lines, right? So if we want to print these 100 lines at multiple places, we can just use this function. We can call this function. Okay. So we have converted this greeting into function. Let's convert this input into a function. So what we are doing here is we are taking input and we are also printing this input. So make sure what has been returned. So we'll move these two. So in this program we don't need to mention that we are printing it, right? It should be part of that function. Here we just need the symptom. So we'll create another function here on top. Okay, take input and it will return this input. So now these two lines here can be simplified into one line. Okay, so sorry while taking input, if you want to print it or do some other operations, we can do inside this function. We don't need to uh, mess the code here. Here we just want to take input, right? But extra things we can do inside this function. So now we have this symptom and which can be used here. Now this whole suggestion thing, that can also be moved to a function. Okay. So even if we don't need to repeat things inside a program, splitting the main code into separate functions will make the code cleaner. So this method now needs this input, right? This input is not accessible inside this function, so we have to pass it here, and it will take from this parameter and check and give suggestion. So here we just say give advice and pass this symptom. Let's run this. So here we don't have any input, so we'll just remove this. Okay, we have this message inside this function. Okay, so now this is greeting 2 times and then taking input. Sorry, here it is taking in name, we need symptom. What is your symptom? Let's see if it works or not. Enter your symptom curve and then in give advice, it's printing take XYZ medicine, this and that, right? So it's working. Right, enter your symptom curve and it says hello curve. Let's remove this. Okay, and then here we are passing symptom to this function and it is giving the suggestion, right? So we have simplified this main program. Okay, we can convert this into a initialize function. So we'll have just greet function, then initialize, then remove this thing, take input and give advice, right? So this way we can create number of functions which has two purposes: simplify the main code. It's easy to read a code which has separate functions instead of having thousands of lines in one simple program. Another is if we need same thing at multiple places, it's easy to use that function. Now let's move on to classes. So we have used this give advice function and we are giving it symptom. It is printing the suggestion, right? So we are calling this function here. Cool. Now why this is still like needs improvement? In any program, delegating some task to some other class, some other program, some other piece of code is suggested. So we can have multiple copies of that, multiple versions of that, and splitting the responsibility to different part of the code is a good coding practice. So this functional programming is not good in this case. We want to create this as an agent, an object. So what will happen is like this program is not giving you advice. Okay, this program, what is it's doing is it's taking an input and it has hired an agent who gives advice. That agent has information, has knowledge. That agent is still a program but not part of this program. That agent could be part of this whole application or it could be part of other library, it could come from other library, right? So we will write a simple agent, but maybe advanced agent already exists in some other library, so we import that agent from there. So when we talk about in this language that agent is giving you advice, this agent 1.0, some other agent 007, which is coming from some other library, right? So that is delegating the task, and that happens because of classes. When we convert this function into class, we can delegate that. It's like we are not taking the responsibility, we are just taking input and giving it to the agent, and agent is replying. So that is done using classes. So we need to create a class which will act as an agent, which will take input and suggest output. At simple version, in simplified version, a class will just have a function, but in advanced level it can have lot of other things, like it can have memory, right? Here we cannot have memory. This whole program will have memory, not just this part. But if we convert this into class, we can add different properties, different features in that class. So it can have memory, it can have access to tools, and everything will be separate, and we can version it separately. Like in future we can move this whole thing, this whole class to our own other library and develop it separately, enhance it and create a new version. So this main code won't change, we just update this agent, right? So what we will do is we will convert this function into a class. So how to define a class in Python? Start with class keyword, then give it a name. Our class is an agent, not a person. Then semicolon. Okay. Then every class needs a init function, which will have a self parameter and other parameter if we want, like name. So this agent could have a name, right? We can create multiple instance of agent with different names. So we will have this function, init function, def underscore underscore init, and in bracket self, and name we just want name. Okay, this thing def init in bracket self comma name colon, and then self dot name equal to name. So every class will have this init function, which will have a self parameter, which is a pointer to itself. Okay, and after that it can have many features, and but for now, starting with this version, we will just have this function inside this class. So we will move this function from our program and make it part of this class. So this give advice is now part of agent. So this agent will give advice, right? Our program will not give advice. This agent belongs to us, like it's right now it's present in our home, right? But tomorrow it could be a specialized agent coming from foreign, right? So that's why we are moving this function, this feature, to this class. So at this simplified version, this class will have just this basic default init function and our get advice function, give advice function. So now instead of us giving advice like this, we'll first hire an agent, like create an instance of this agent class like this, agent equal to, see, agent, and in bracket name of the agent, like health bot. Okay, so this is a health bot, suppose 1.0. So we have created this agent, we have hired this agent, and now this agent will answer you. Okay, so agent dot give advice, it will take the symptom and it will give advice. Right now in this function we have decided that if cough then do this, if fever then do this. When we move this logic to agent, we don't have to worry about this. The agent builder, the person who writes the agent, needs to build all this logic, and we will just use this agent. Our program will use this agent. So instead of that method, we now use this class. So we are creating an object of this class with this name and calling its advice method. Okay, is it clear? So instead of direct method, we have created a class with keyword class agent, a init function which is required here. Okay, this is a syntax, and then a method, and every method of a class will take first parameter as self. Remember this, you use it or not, but it will take it. Okay, so now when we run this program, it will run no different, right? But the logic has been moved to agent internally. So let's test this. So we have entered curve and it is giving you the suggestion. Later what we can do is we can build memory inside this agent, some capability like tool calling. So instead of just printing this, it will pass this symptom to third-party APIs, get the suggestion from there, and then it will give advice, not by itself, right? So once we created this class, this agent, next responsibility to make it advanced, add capabilities to this class, add features, add properties like memory, tool calling, and caching, and a lot of other things. So we can either make this class advanced, or we can create multiple copies, like this is agent, another is advanced agent, third is memory agent, tool calling agent. So we can use all the agent whenever we want. Like if we want basic agent, we'll call this. If we want memory agent, then we'll call memory agent. So you have two options, either you make this agent full featured, or you create every agent with different class. And later in future we can move this to different libraries so others can also use it, right? That is the advantage of creating a class. So remember, for now this is the basic syntax: class, agent, init function by default with self as input, and then the function which we want, and other features, other capabilities can be added, which we will be doing in future videos. And later we will be converting this agent to LLM agent, or maybe then replacing it with third-party agents like uh, CrewAI agent, right? So we are going in sync. We have converted this advice to a function, and then from that function to a agent, and then this agent will become advanced agent, CrewAI agent, and some other things, and take all other responsibilities. So our this simple program of suggesting the user will become smarter. Okay, so I will close this video for now. You can practice the functions in agent, and in next videos I will start enhancing this agent from a simple Python agent to CrewAI agent and other things. Okay, so like always, if you have any doubt, you can ask in the doubt session, or you can message.